Hi, my name is Anne. Welcome to Quilty Time. Today is the second video in the making of an Irish chain quilt. And I'll be cutting the fabric and piecing the 9-patch blocks using the strip set method, which makes it much faster and easier. I will, at the end of this video, put all the blocks up on the design wall behind me so we can see it start to come together. Also, I would like to audition the floral fabric I picked out for the 6-inch border. I hope it's going to have enough contrast. We'll find out. And also, I'm going to put up a link that you can use to download a document that has a lot of the measurements and stuff like that so that you can make this quilt if you want to. So stick around for that. So first, let's talk about how we can make 9 patches from strip sets. So we'll be making strip sets that look like this for the black rows, the row on top and bottom. And for the middle row on the 9 patches, we'll sew together strip sets that are white, black, white. This quilt requires 31 9 patches and 32 white 6.5-inch squares. For the 31 9 patches, we'll cut 10 black 2.5-inch strips with the fabric and 8 white. From those strips, we're going to sew 4 black strip sets, black, white, black, and we'll sew 2 white strip sets, white, black, white, for the center rows. Then we'll subcut those into 2.5-inch segments, and each one of those will be a row. And at that point, we just arrange them and we chain piece them into 9 patches, and you only have 2 seams to go to finish each block. So it's way faster. So let's get started. All right, so first, we need to find the straight grain on a piece of fabric that doesn't have selvages. It really helps when you can line up the selvages, but I cut those off. So that's the downside to doing that, is trying to figure out what is straight. So what I do is I line up the selvage edges, and I'm going to shift these out of position so you can see what happens. When the straight of grain is not aligned in a folded piece like this, you can see it's got a big pooch there. And as I slowly shift and kind of give a shake, and I can go too far the other direction, you see the pooch comes up the other side there. So I just shift and shake until I've got this piece of fabric I think that's pretty good. Yeah. I'm going to spin this around so the fold is towards me. It will make lining up. See, because the only straight edge I have out of all 4 right now is the fold. So I'm going to put that towards me so I can see it better. And I'm going to start cutting some strips. Now, I wrote this down because I could not memorize it. It's too many S's. Rob Appel has a video called Simple Steps to Successful Strip Sewing. Now, I'm going to show you a trick that will make doing these 9 patches a lot faster. And I was kind of on YouTube looking up to kind of refresh my memory on that. And this Simple Steps to Successful Strip Sewing is fantastic. It goes through every step of handling the fabric so that in the end, when you're sewing your strips, you're going to avoid getting any waves in them. So I really recommend you. I mean, it goes through handling the fabric, ironing the fabric, every step cutting, how to cut it the best way, how to stitch it the best way, where the weight of the fabric on the machine is. I mean, it's a great video, so I highly encourage everyone to watch that. Okay, so I'm going to start cutting this now. So first what I like to do is give myself a nice straight edge. Actually, let me see my strip ruler here. Yeah, this is better because the biggest ruler you can use will give you the straightest edge when you've got a line lined up with your fold. So I'm going to use this huge ruler for that. Just give myself a nice straight starting point. This is a stripology ruler. I'm not going to use this the whole time, but because you have to fold the fabric one more time to get it to fit in the slots, I believe. Yeah. And I don't want to put two folds in it because every extra fold you put in there when you're cutting strips is going to introduce a new variable to screw you up. So I'm going to flip this around. For now, I think I'm just going to cut 3 white strips and 3 blacks. And then I'll come back and cut more once I've got those all sewn up. I wonder what happens if we line up the repeats. So I've got the fold down here. I'm going to shift it to where, like, the flower, this particular flower is getting cut off about at the same. I'm just curious how straight the print is on the grain. Oh, that's pretty straight. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to trust it over myself. Okay. It's all a crapshoot, you know? Just have to take your best odds sometimes. All right, I'm going to straighten up. I'm going to get that big ruler again. Sorry, I have developing a sinus infection, so I'm not feeling really well. I'm sweaty and yeah. Okay. Okay. 1/4 inch seam, take 2. With this jukey foot, that is about a 1/4 inch seam. I wonder if my big seam guide will work better. Let's try it. This one is a bit more substantial. Yeah, that looks right. Okay. Okay. That's a good one. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to go press this, so I will take you there. Okay, so some people like to set their seams like this. And I guess that just kind of relaxes that thread a little bit. And the video I watched that Rob Appel did, he set his seams this way on these strips anyway, where he just kind of inserted the tip of his iron right along the seam edge like this. And it makes sense to do it like that because it kind of helps the iron find the seam and make sure that it's you know, open all the way. And so I noticed that I am pressing this the wrong direction. We want to press this toward the dark fabric. So I'm going to do that again. So many things to think about, you know. Okay, so now that this is sewn together, instead of 5 inches, this should measure 4.5 inches. So let me see. Yeah, a little shy. Let me see further down. I should probably try a different ruler just in case. Yeah. So it's just a hair shy, but it's not horrible. This will be a black, white, black row of a 9 pouch. And we will put the next strip set together and it will be white, black, white. All right, we need to go a little more scant. Ugh. Why is this so hard? So at this point, I wanted to interject and talk about my struggles with the 1/4 inch seam. So I haven't done a 1/4 inch seam in like over a month because I've been doing FPP. And I knew I was going to have to dial it in. It is certainly not like riding a bike for me. It just isn't. And so I took the time to, you know, practice and get back in the swing. I knew I was going to need to do a scant 1/4 inch because I'm pressing to the side and that eats up fabric. And so I couldn't get it to measure. I did everything. I pulled out all the tricks. I, you know, put a big seam guide in there. I went even more scant. I skirted Mary Ellen's best press on it to flatten the seam more. I put clappers on it. I just couldn't get it to, you know, measure the right width. So what I finally figured out what was going on was the black fabric I'm using is really thick. And what was happening is I'm pressing to the dark side, so this fabric is so thick, it's eating up a ton of fabric in that seam allowance, and I just wasn't going scant enough. What I did was, to figure it out, was I pressed it to the white fabric, and that measured perfectly. Yeah, so anyway, I just went uber scant, and that seemed to fix it. So I hope that helps somebody if they're having that problem. And the next time I start struggling with a 1/4 inch seam and getting something in the right width, I will certainly think about the thickness of the fabric. And in retrospect, and if you're thinking of doing this quilt or working with strip sets, I would myself I would cut them a little wider. The fabric requirements that I figured out did allow enough to be able to cut 1/8 of an inch wider. So it'd be 2 5/8 inches to give some wiggle room to be able to cut those down after they are pressed. And I would cut them down after the first press. I wouldn't sew the third piece on there without trimming them down, because then the center piece will be too wide and that creates all sorts of extra problems. So anyway, that's my struggle, and I hope that helps, and onward. That looks pretty good. So stressful. Okay, back to the iron. I'll show you the best press. I'm going to give it a light mist with the Mary Ellen's best press. I'm going to fold it back. And I'm going to give it a press. I'll give it one more hit. Doesn't take much. That bottle there is going to last me quite a while. I don't always use it, But when I start having trouble with seams lying flat, oh, it's the best. Now this should measure, this was 2.5 inches. I took 1/4 into the seam. So that's 2 1/4 and 2 1/4. That's 4.5 inches. And this should now be 2 inches. So that's 6.5 inches wide. That's usable. And the white in the center is really pretty spot on 2 inches. So I am absolutely happy with that. Thank you, Mary Ellen's Best Pros. So we've got our black, white, black strip set. Now we need to do a white, black, white. So I'm going to straighten up the end of this white, black, white strip set. These need to trim to 2.5 inches. So, looks good. Trying to line up as many lines. These aren't perfectly sewn, but they're not horrible. Okay, right on. Yeah. Oh, that fabric, that black fabric is so pretty. I love it. All right, so I'm going to cut the rest of the blacks and the whites. I'm going to stack as many blocks as I can get out of this on that design board, and then I will take it over to the machine and we will put together our 9 patches. Woo! Okay, we're back at the machine with our rows, and what I'm going to do is attach the top row to the middle row. I'm going to do all 8 without breaking the thread, and then I'm going to cut the thread and attach those units to the bottom row. And because we press to the dark side, that means these seams are going to the outside, and in the middle row they're going to the inside. So they're going to interlock really nicely as we're stitching these together. And really we can do this without pinning. I'm going to go for it. So I'm just going to get those first 2 seams nice and tight together. Try to do this without a guide, and hopefully I can Alright, now I'm almost to that first set of nested seams. I'm going to push these together, make sure they're nice and tight together. I'm going to do a quick measure on this and make sure those nested pretty nice. Those points are nestled right together. I'm happy with that. Very nice. Okay, that measures a wonderful 4.5 inch by 6.5 inch. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so I cut the thread on that one, but I'm just going to chain the rest together. So let's go. Okay, so at this point it doesn't matter which way we press these, because to the every side of them will just be a 6.5 inch white square. The seams don't have to nest with anything else around it, so I always just take the path of least resistance as far as which direction to push those, which seems to be to the outside for whatever reason. I am going to set the seams the first way that I mentioned before, where I'm just going to run over them. I'm going to fold them back and kind of push them down with my finger. Yep. Set them. Push them back. Push them down and press them. And I am going to hit these with the little Mary Ellens. Beautiful. I can tell I'll show you. Where did I see that? Oh yeah, okay. So see right here where the black falls short of the white. Now I'm going to take a pin. This is what I like to do just so I don't forget to compensate for that when I sew it to the next white square. Is I just put a pin along the edge where there's an issue, and I just leave that there to remind me to not follow that black square when I'm stitching the next seam. So just gives me one more chance to try to fix that stuff. So all the blocks were done, and actually the last 23 blocks went way better than the first 8. So that's ready, and they're not sewn together. Next week I will do the web piecing to pull them all together, and if there's time I will do the borders. In the meantime, I have to wash the borders. I want them to shrink since the fabric was starched. It's pre-shrunk, so I want everything to kind of start off on the same foot. And I'll also wash the backing. So this is what I was thinking for the border, and I am gonna use it. I'm not thinking, I'm definitely gonna use it. And it is, this simulates that 2-inch border that goes all the way around. And then the 6-inch border, I'm going to use this. I think this is a Lori Holt Prairie something or other. I'll link to it in the description. I should have looked that up, but I don't recall. Yeah. I'll put it in the description. So yeah, I think that's just gorgeous. And I think with a black border, I don't know if I'll use the tone-on-tone or just a plain black. I'm not going to use a stripe or anything, I don't think. So yeah, awesome. This makes me happy. This is one of the delightful moments in making a quilt. So I appreciate that you're here with me. So right after this, I'm going to verbally give you the fabric requirements for every component of the quilt, you know, from the iris chain plus the white border, the 6-inch border, the binding, and the backing. So stick around for that, and at the end I'll provide you with a link where you can get a PDF to download if you want to make this quilt that has all of that information and some other helpful stuff. It's like 5 pages, I think, if you want to make this quilt. And I mean, if you watch the video and have that PDF, you're good to go. So thank you very much for watching, and come back next week for the web piecing of the blocks, and I'll see you next quilty time. So the quilt size is 70 inches tall by 58 inches wide. The interior portion where the Irish chain pattern is and the 1-inch border around that, those together require 3 yards of white and 1 yard of black fabric. The larger 6-inch border around that is going to require 1.5 yards. The binding will use up about 2/3 of a yard, and the backing will require, well, I'm going to use 2 yards of 108-inch wide back, and I'm just going to turn it. So the 108 inches along the tall side of the quilt. But if you don't want to do that, you could just use a little over 2 yards.